The 359 is sponsored by USB Technology. The USB Implementers Forum reminds consumers that USB IF logos are displayed on certified USB products. So the next time you're shopping for a reliable USB charger, cable, or device, look for the logos. Get the whole story at enablingus.org.
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Joni Salzman.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Twitter and CEO Jack Dorsey have been taking a lot of heat for not banning Alex Jones, a far-right conspiracy theorist and host of Infowars, after YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Facebook banned him last week. On Tuesday, Twitter suspended Jones' account for 7 days for a tweet to a video about getting, quote, battle rifles ready against the media and others. Jones denies he made this threat. Meanwhile, the Infowars Twitter account is still live. The video is still on Periscope, which is owned by Twitter. So either way, that was a lot of an intro. But Joan, do these social sites have a clear and transparent policy on banning certain kinds of content? I'm having a hard time figuring out, like, do they know what they're doing?
I think the answer is no.
Okay.
I think
kind of what I thought.
Fair to say no. I mean, that's part of the problem. It's a combination of they don't know how to handle this responsibility where they have to exert editorial judgment over these sort of very gray areas of what is a violation of their policies or not. They have these policies and they're transparent about these policies. But there's so much gray area in what is hate speech, what is satire, what is
harassment,
what is harassment. And so because they're not transparent about how they adjudicate these decisions and why this thing deserves to get somebody kicked off, but this thing doesn't, it just leads to an overall impression that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and a lot of the moves have appeared to be very arbitrary in a way where, you know, he gets banned on Twitter for this one, but he's made similar comments in previous posts where he talks about, you know, trying to shoot, not him trying to shoot, but like just he mentioned like a rifle, and then former FBI director James Comey, and you know, he didn't get banned for that one or anything like that, but then like he does get banned for this one. It does like bring about this whole feeling of they're real, like the rules don't really matter and they're just doing whatever they want.
It just seems kind of ad hoc. That's the impression that I get. So I kind of wanted to pose this question to the both of you. Do you think that this episode, and this is probably the most optimistic view of this potentially, but do you think this episode with Alex Jones will help these social sites improve their policies?
No.
I mean, I think that for one thing, it's maybe like you could say it's kind of crossing a Rubicon. Like at a certain point, even Twitter and Jack Dorsey, which I think has called itself like the free speech wing of the internet or something to that effect. You know, when they even have to say like, yeah, we can't allow something like that to be present on our platform, then maybe that's showing that they're willing to take responsibility for more of that content, but it opens up a whole Pandora's box because their sites are so large, their services are so huge, and they've given a lot of free reign to a lot of people for so long. It's a messy situation.
And like, you know, this goes back to what I was saying where, you know, it seemed really arbitrary for Alex Jones. This doesn't just apply to him. Like there are a lot of times where I've seen a post get banned on Twitter or an account get banned on Twitter, and the reasoning makes no sense at all. Whereas other posts where I'll see it like, oh, that makes complete sense that like they should, you know, take this down, but they don't. There's like always all these screenshot accounts like, hey, we found that this post from a Nazi like threatening to kill you did not violate our rules. And then I see another account where they tweeted at Frosted Flakes and says like, I'd like to have sex with Tony the Tiger. And that account was banned. So it was just like, what is going on with like these rules? How are you applying them in this? Yeah.
Okay, I do want to get to one other piece of lighter tech news while we still have time. Alexa and Cortana's long-awaited collaboration is now live as an early access public preview. You can now talk to Alexa with your Windows 10 laptop or queue up Cortana on an Echo speaker. I don't know if you guys are excited about this, but obviously it's something that people can check out if they want to do that. Anyway, if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox-Rubin.
I'm Joni Salzman.
I'm Alfred Ng.
Thanks for listening.
And apologies to everybody for all the smart speakers we queued at the end there.
Yeah, my bad. By the way, I ran out of time, but I wanted to plug Megan Wallerton's story about road trips. So she wrote about the work to protect the rare Devil's Hole pupfish with the help of a lot of monitoring tech. That's also on CNET, so check out that story. And yeah, okay. It's a 4-minute podcast, so sorry. Bear with me.
4-minute podcast, and now wants to take your questions and comments, so go ahead and submit those in the chat. We want to kind of reiterate again, we don't want this to get political or heated. I know it has a tendency, and it's easy to get that way. Let's talk about where free speech does come into play, how it plays in the social media world, where it starts, where it stops. What rights does Twitter have? What rights does Mr. Jones have? And let's try to keep it there. We know we trust you guys. You've been fantastic in the past. Just disclaiming on behalf. So, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, related to that, I'm sure a lot of fans of Alex Jones would call this censorship. He's obviously been promoting that issue for a long time, or specifically with the bans from last week. Whether it is or isn't censorship really depends, like where you sit.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, it's not a First Amendment issue because those are not.
They don't have the rights to say whatever they want on Twitter. There is no right to saying whatever you want on Twitter.
It's not government controlled. That's where the First Amendment starts and stops. But we were talking about this before the podcast that because Facebook and Twitter and some of these other sites are so big and powerful. You could, to a certain extent, make a First Amendment claim, or at least say that.
You can't make a First Amendment claim, but you can make the claim that it's censorship because they're such powerful companies, that it's not government-sponsored and enacted censorship, but that they are such gatekeepers to
Joan, you got to move your mic closer.
Sorry. But they're such gatekeepers to conversation that you can't sue them on a First Amendment grounds, but you could make the case that it's still kind of censorship.
Yeah.
We have a question here from Simon Cheng asking, will Alex Jones move to VK or any other possible social media? What other platforms do you think
Gab.
My question is, will he just start his own? Because he's got the resources.
He has Infowars.
He
has Infowars.com.
Well, that's a website, not a social network.
Definitely,
drags
down with.
It's a place where his followers can interact with him. Like, they can be social there.
The other thing is that they are promoting already Gab.ai, which that was an attempt by a lot of folks on the right or the far right. To create something that they thought was like a free speech social network. So that's an area where a lot of folks go.
Yeah. I mean, on the note of like free speech on social media, though, I mean, like Joan said, it's not like a government problem or anything like that for them because they're private companies. But, the folks behind Twitter and Facebook and to a certain degree YouTube have this very I feel like ingrained mentality of, this is an open platform where anybody can express their feelings and we don't want to stifle any voices online, even though we disagree with them. Jack Dorsey defended that last week on Twitter where he basically brings up all these points and says, he can say these things that are awful and wrong and we rely heavily on journalists to do that and disprove him. But there are many, many cases of journalists disproving and
they don't care.
And it doesn't care. So when this whole marketplace of ideas thing blows up in your face, what are you really supposed to do at that point?
It is interesting that Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey have both come out and very publicly said that it's okay to be misleading or have misinformation on their sites. That is not a reason to be banned. And that to me is a very clear indication that they do not want to make editorial decisions.
I mean,
when it comes to Alex Jones, though, it obviously went too far and they decided that this is more than we want to handle.
I agree with their point of, it's okay to be wrong on a social network. But they're applying that to normal people. They're applying that if I post
good faith, good faith users.
If I post that on my page and if some political view that I have and it's completely wrong, but it's that's just me. I can say that within this circle or something, and it's not going to be that much of a problem. The fact that there is a verified account or an account that has millions of followers that's posted, with a verified status with marked or classified as a news organization, saying stuff like this, that's something that they could definitely control, I guess, in my books at least.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I want to hear some more from the audience. So do we have more questions, Brian?
Yeah, I'll get there in a sec. I just want to say I'm actually impressed that Alfred's kind of the level-headed one this time.
What the hell are you
put it
talking
in the calendars.
Why would you be surprised by that?
Because it's not Smash. So anyways, let's take a comment from Srinjoy. What do we think about hashtag #deactoday that's been trending on Twitter as a step against Jack by deactivating their accounts unless he takes down Alex Jones?
I mean, I don't know if it's a direct result of, but it might. I don't know exactly how the hashtag got popularized, but yesterday there was this widely spread post by somebody who works at Twitter who said that he's been a daily user of Twitter for 8 years, a decade. I can't remember exactly what it was, but been using Twitter daily for years, works at Twitter, but he's going to take a sabbatical. He's going to stop. He's going to delete it from his phone. He's not going to use it, even though he works there, because of these problems. Like that he feels like the leadership of Twitter is letting Twitter's usership down by not being more proactive. I don't know if that's directly linked to the hashtag that's trending, but I think that definitely is probably the sentiment that's involved with that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think a protest like this will work. I think it's like a small like circle of people that might be doing it. But like if you deactivate your account on Twitter, like how can you tell? Like if you use Twitter, I assume you get most of your news from Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. So my point is, like, how are you gonna know if it's successful? If
I think the point is that it's one of many like bricks on the wall to kind of put pressure on Dorsey. And I think that to a certain extent it worked. I mean, like Alex Jones got suspended. So it's obviously not a ban, and it's very leaky in that Infowars, like that Twitter account, isn't suspended at the same time, even though it's like very directly linked to Alex Jones. So I think Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, those guys last week all made the same calculation that they were like, okay, do we really want to, is this the hill that we want to die on? Like, do we really want to defend Alex Jones and like say that like we're not going to censor people specifically for him? He's a very, very difficult, I would say, kind of person to have as a rallying cry and say like we're not going to make editorial decisions, and here's a good reason why. It's difficult to defend what exactly he does. I mean, like Sandy Hook is a perfect example of that.
I kind of feel like that's maybe more, and I don't want to get too personal about this because we're supposed to stay as unbiased as possible, but if anybody says something distasteful or outwardly and objectively and intentionally offensive just to stir the pot, they should get their wrist slapped. Like if your kid's screaming in the grocery store, you spank them and you ban them on Twitter.
Ban them on Twitter. No Facebook.
That's kind of the attitude I've kind of taken away from all of this personally, and that should go for everybody, not just somebody whose beliefs I don't 100% agree with. If you're being an ass, you should get your ass slapped.
Well, and not even that. Like,
don't laugh at me.
No, I'm glad I'm not your kid. I don't want to deal with that.
But I mean, but I think it's not even like if you're doing something bad, you deserve to have some sort of, slap on the wrist or whatever it may be. But even I don't personally understand why these platforms don't hold higher standards as people have greater and greater influence on them. Like if there's a site, if there's a page or an account that has millions of followers, that should, I feel like, mean that they are held to a higher standard of you can't say these offhand things off the cuff quite as much. I don't see that, and that would be one way to allow there to be a continuation of free discourse, just not by the people that can use free discourse in a bad faith way to poison other people's conversations.
Yeah, and I feel like Twitter does it kind of gets to do it both ways a little bit more now, in that if somebody's like trolling you, a lot of times they'll like hide the comments. Like if there are like responses to things, like the algorithm will identify that like, oh, there's a group of friends talking, and then somebody shows up and starts just like writing in troll comments or whatever. Those comments will then get hidden, but you can just click through and see them if you want to. So that's kind of a way for Twitter to not editorialize too much, but to also make discourse like a little bit more comfortable or a little bit safer, I guess.
I mean, to Joan's point, though, I agree in the sense that, if somebody, you don't have to editorialize to like take away somebody's like verification check or something like that, which really doesn't matter. But like to do that is like, I feel like is a sign, at least from a social network, saying like, yeah, we don't like approve of what's going on here, but like we're letting it like happen anyway. in the sense of, yeah, we like, okay, so this is no longer a verified account that we're like pushing out to people or like signifying to people like you should consider this a trusted source. Like I don't really care about like the blue check mark or anything like that, but a lot of people who look at Twitter accounts do. In the sense when they'll see something and they're like, oh, this account is verified, that must mean it's like a legitimate source of news or something like that. So, you know, that's like a simple step that they can take and like ensure that they're not like verified on their like pages anymore or anything like that.
And Twitter said that they are going to look into verifications. It's not
like
one
a
of
year
their
ago,
top
didn't they?
priorities. Yeah, and they said that it's not a top priority, but it's obviously they've admitted it's a broken system, and they realized that it is often viewed more as a seal of approval than just a way to verify that yes, in fact, this is the person that says it is. So like, yes, this is Alex Jones's account or Elon Musk's account, as opposed to like a fake account, which if you're going to look at it as face value, that's what they claimed they wanted to do with the verification checks. But
you can see like, and this is where like I will grant them, these decisions are super complicated. Like I could see a scenario where let's say you take the check mark off of Infowars, then the whole panoply of accounts that pretend to be Infowars, that feign being Infowars, could spread even more noxious things. And yeah, people can understand like the one that has like 1.8 million followers is the one, but you know what I mean? Like it could embolden and provide more legitimacy to the ones that are pretending to be the crazy.
I completely agree with you. That
I agree with you too, Joe.
They are not in an easy position at all, but that's precisely why we're talking about it on the podcast.
And also,
yeah.
They're not. It's a hard position to be in, but they're also like incredibly wealthy people that make these decisions. Like they've beyond like in the scope of history, people. It's very rare that people haven't like enriched themselves quite as much as these people that run these platforms. So like these are hard problems. So when I say like I'll give them, I'll cut them that slack. It's a hard problem, but like they should be dealing with hard problems if they're making this much money. You know?
Yeah.
Excellent points all around, Joan. I do agree with you, too. It's better to know where the obnoxious behavior is coming from and be able to point the finger at it.
You make good points, too, Ben.
Yes! Ben!
We'll get to a couple more questions. And Sanjay asks, is ghosting an account okay or better than censoring?
That's a good question.
Was that kind of like a shadow banning?
Shadow banning
reference?
Or gonzoing or whatever it's called. Bozoing.
It's a lever, right? It's a lever people that these platforms can pull. And I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like it's one of those things you can look at, you know, like different sides of the mirror. Like, is it good that they're taking a half measure, or is it bad that they're taking a half measure? Like, it's glass half full, half empty.
I think it depends on the type of troll that you're dealing with. So when Infowars had their account basically deleted from YouTube, they set up another like YouTube account like right after, and it was on their Facebook page. They made a post that basically said, you know, YouTube is censoring us now, and we are moving to another YouTube channel. Click on here for our like stream today while we like get set up or whatever. So that was the result of a permanent like ban that they knew about. Had they been ghosted or shadow banned or whatever you want to call it, then it would have taken much longer for them to figure that out. Like, I guess the idea would just be like, how come we're only getting like 5 views or like 10 viewers like today, as opposed to how much we usually get? And then like, you know, but the thing is like, at that point, they'll probably connect the dots and figure out and then make another account anyway.
Yeah. In a best case scenario, I think Reddit was apparently ghosting people that were trolling.
They were doing that until like 2013, 2012.
Yeah. And the idea there, and I don't know how effective it was, obviously they're not doing it anymore, but the idea is that people would just, you know, post crap on Reddit and they would get no responses, no upvotes, whatever. And the argument is that they just kind of get tired and leave the site.
But that's different though, because it's like anonymous people that like don't have a massive following that would be wondering, you know, anytime you're off screen, hey, where's Poochie? You know, the idea is like, oh, that person like has like a large following, so even if we shadow banned them, they would know, like their following would like, you know, still find them and all stuff. And if we ban them out completely, then there's still going to be a big like ruckus about it. So shadow banning doesn't exactly work when the person that you're doing it to has a large following to begin with.
I really like this conversation that's going on in the chat right now about accountability and standards. Our Wallop says the verification check should mean more than just this is in fact the person that they are. APEC asks, wouldn't having separate rules for accounts with more followers be fair? Take YouTube and people with 6 million subs and people with 100. Is it fair for their rules to be in different classes? Srinjoy says, why isn't pro-speech defendants so vocal? Say Facebook for going against Alex Jones. And then Hunter Lee comes up with this fantastic idea that I think would be an interesting thing for us to look into. Hunter Lee says maybe they should have a new way to mark an account, different degrees of marks, like with an X instead of a check mark, to label them untrustworthy.
That's an interesting argument.
Well, the whole untrustworthy.
But then who gets to make those calls?
So they're very against like saying you shouldn't trust this source. Like even on like the fact checkers that they put on Facebook, those calls that like this is like deceptive news or this is misinformation. Those calls are not made by Facebook. They like rely on third-party sources like the AP and
Snopes and
to do that for them, because Facebook for a while has basically like, we don't want to be the ones that are telling you what's true and what's not.
Right.
So like I think that like making a mark for a website that like provides like false information would not be something that they would do. And on the first point about different sets of rules for if you have a verified account or like X amount of followers, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think like, when you are verified or when you have like an account with like, millions of subscribers, you enjoy a different set of benefits that like a normal user wouldn't have. Like I believe on YouTube, like you're allowed to monetize your stuff like almost immediately after you have like X amount of subscribers, which they changed recently. So like random channels just couldn't monetize stuff. So right. I think that if you enjoy certain benefits from it, then you should also have to adhere to a different set of rules from like being a bigger name.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and just on YouTube, for example, just to be clear, if you do have access to being able to monetize your videos, you are held to different standards of appropriateness. Instead of being held to like the YouTube terms of service,
you can't like curse, right?
You're held to advertiser-friendly policies.
Yeah.
And so,
you can't.
So there are higher standards, but that's not to say that you could have one video that fits those advertiser standards and still be Alex Jones. You know what I mean? You could still have like tons of things you don't monetize that are in violation of the basic community standards. But now he's been kicked off, so that's a theoretical conversation. So at least they went that far.
Christian says if the major social media platforms censor everything, then there will be a social media for those who don't want to be censored. That's an inevitability. Here's another really interesting thought from Christian as well. What if Twitter lets you know that they're going to censor your post before you upload it using some form of AI? What if there was some kind of automated filtration?
I mean, for that
system?
AI to exist, it would have to know what you're typing before you even publish it, and that's already incredibly invasive.
It'd have to be based on keywords, right?
When we're talking about slippery slopes, I kind of feel like that is more thought policing than just suspending or banning Alex Jones.
They also do that in comment sections, though. Like on certain websites, like New York Times does it too, where like if you try to like type in the F word or anything like that, they'll like tell you basically like
it's so easy to game those things.
Yeah, it is, which is why I don't think it should be based on keywords or anything like that. That being said, though, I think it's really weird if a website had a policy like that of we're going to take this post down before you even post it, just so like kind of thing. Like our AI spotted some negative things in here.
It does seem clear to me though that these sites are going to have to make more editorial decisions than they are right now because they're trying to avoid it as much as possible. So if 5 to 10 years from now, Facebook, Twitter have like editorial teams that actually monitor this kind of stuff from that perspective, I guess I wouldn't be that surprised by that. They obviously have a lot of moderators already to get rid of, crap and troll comments, nudity, a lot of those things that are some more often than not easier to just say like, oh, okay, that's nudity. We'll get rid of it, as opposed to something like harassment or hate speech, which can fit into gray areas.
And remember, everybody, just as a public service announcement, and thank you to Greg, there's always a block button. Stringjoy does bring up that there's a very good segregation of verified marks for articles on Wikipedia. They have different colored stars, padlocks, and a whole host of marks. Twitter could take note from that. I completely forgot about that feature in Wikipedia, that there's different grades of authenticity to an article, like if it's been heavily edited by third-party users rather than actually cited from source, that you have to take, like, it's like a grain of salt reading. I think that'd be an interesting thing to see implemented across a lot of different media platforms.
Yeah, somehow Wikipedia has done a really good job of avoiding, like, putting itself in this internet mud pit that we're all in now, where, you know, I mean, yeah, it is also, you know, an incredibly rich target. Like, if somebody wanted to spread misinformation, I would imagine that Wikipedia is a good place to do it.
It's been, people have tried to game Wikipedia for years.
Yeah.
So I think they have a lot of experience trying to lock down certain pages.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine the president's Wikipedia page is something that gets targeted a lot.
And I know that, like, Yelp has started doing something like this too, where, like, anytime there's something controversial in the news involving a business, like, that place will be, like, bombarded with, like, negative reviews out of thin air. But, like, Yelp has started doing stuff now where, like, they'll lock a page if it's, like, been in the headlines lately, because they know people will swarm it to like ruin its ratings or anything like that.
All right, so I guess that's proof that there are controls that can be made to improve things. But at this point, especially this year, it does feel like more of like a dumpster fire at Facebook and Twitter. And
well, I think the thing is, like, when you're that big, you have to be a lot more careful and considerate of, like, what your moves are. When you're like Yelp, it's kind of, I mean, like, Yelp is a big website, but I think
Not
for them,
big.
it's like, they can make these moves without, like, making any kind of waves, because, like, people won't, like, scrutinize it or try to figure out, like, oh, how can I get around this or anything like that. With Facebook and Twitter, you know, they're so big that, like, they have to be nimble about everything they do, lest they, you know, end up, like, crushing a few things, like, by accident because of, like, the changes that they've made.
So do we think that something maybe along the lines of the rating system for like movies and TV would be kind of helpful? Like, what is appropriate
Like
for
rating people?
No. Rating content, rating channels.
A 1 to 100 rating.
One major concern is, like, impressionability of a user. If younger users are getting inundated with conspiracy theories, how long until they just kind of fall down that rabbit hole themselves? Maybe
I mean, that's
not
hard to do online, though. Like, especially, like, I guess it's different from movies and TV shows, but, like, if you're going with, like, we're gonna rate, like, Infowars versus rating, like, CNET or something like that, like, an organization like that could always just ask all its viewers and, like, rabid fans to, like,
Well, I mean,
brigade something.
Facebook is
Depends if
doing
it's
this right.
crowdsourced.
Facebook is doing this right now. They did their trust survey, and they're continually doing these trust surveys where they ask their users just those two questions: are you familiar with this outlet, and how much do you trust it? And what they do is, in order to eliminate those, like, bipolar elements of loyalty, they eliminate the, like, factions at either end. So they only listen to people's and this is a simplification of it, but they only really factor in people that aren't on the two poles of loyalty, either like, I don't trust CNN at all, or I think Infowars is the best thing ever. You know, like, those people aren't counted in Facebook's rankings, but Facebook's rankings aren't transparent. They don't share
That's
what
my primary,
those things are.
That's my primary problem with all of this is that none of this really seems transparent. They say what the policies are, but the way that they are laid out and actually meted out in different, it seems completely, I don't know, oftentimes nonsensical. It still doesn't make, I'm not personally trying to get Infowars suspended, but it doesn't make sense to me that you would suspend Alex Jones's account but not Infowars account at the same time. They're like one and the same, and Alex Jones is just posting stuff on the Infowars site. It gives me the impression that all you have to do, you have to specifically say something bad on that one account, or else it's not really, like, it doesn't make a difference. So the argument could be that Alex Jones could create 24 different accounts to post things, like, willy-nilly on all of them, and then prevent bans that way.
I like this comment from Alex Mitchell that just came in. The problem with the internet is it's trying to be a good parent because parents don't want to do it themselves. There's a difference between making things civil and making a child safe. Bring back parenting. On that note, I myself am just kind of becoming disenchanted with the whole grassroots things and farming out to the audience to get the feedback, and it's a cesspool, guys. Except
we should only take questions from this room,
except for our chat room. But yeah, I don't know. I'm getting dangerously more and more in favor of having like what's the MSRB rating board for the internet? Jeez. Yeah. I know. I hate that I just said that out loud, but at the same time, I hate what's happening in content right now.
I thought you were
except for this show.
Except for this show.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Is that except for whatever, like everybody likes their thing, and
they don't let me push my own conspiracy theories on this show, and it's awful.
Yeah, sorry.
Breakfast is a scam.
That is
Dr.
actually
Robotnik did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Wow, way to bring it down, Ben. This entire show was your fault.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what I just said, but yeah, I'll take the blame for it. That's fine. That's what good parents do, is that take responsibility.
Can we have something lighter tomorrow to talk about?
Yes.
Please.
We could have talked about the pupfish today, but
we could have talked about the pupfish.
Do we have any questions about Alexa and Cortana being on the same device?
Alexa and what?
Yeah, I just shoehorned that one in at the end. Anyway, I kind of have to go.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Yeah.
But good discussion, and thanks everybody for keeping a level head. The internet, as I said, is a horrible, horrible place filled with trolls and rotten comments. So it's nice to have a civil discussion. That's all.
Some good
Just
people.
look, think about the
here.
big breakfast industry, okay? Like, nobody really wants to eat cereal in the morning. That's not...
So hungry right now.
Okay, cereal's not a good meal, all right? Like,
I want cereal right now.
they really needed to sell it on... Are we done? Are we still on air?
I think we're still on air. Either way, the breakfast...
You can't silence me, okay?
The Breakfast is Delicious Council podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, the Amazon Echo, and of course, CNET.com. Thanks everybody for sending in your questions. Really appreciated the show today. Thanks both of you for being here.
Just
Thank you, Ben.
Think about how good eggs are. Why do you only have to eat eggs in the morning? You
Thank
can have
you, Ben.
eggs on multiple meals.
Thank you, viewers.
You're going to have to cut his mic.